Well, good morning. We're getting a pretty early start today. Just turned out that way here on Spawning Bay, 23rd of July, 2024. And so we've got everything kind of taken apart here. Just about to put the tent away. And I've got all my bits and pieces on the table. When we get everything put away, I'll have my breakfast and make my lunch. And Buddy over there is already halfway home. And we've got a freshening breeze coming here today, so it's just going to be, it's been the trip of the headwinds. We've had really nice weather otherwise, but we'll be out of here and along the eastern side of Lake Temagami. That should be okay, but when we get to Shinglewood Bay, the wind could be coming right up the chute. So we'll have to see how that goes, how much we can hide behind and exactly what direction it's coming from. But we've got about 7 or 8 kilometers to paddle up there to get to the Broom Lake access. So that's the question mark. Not so much that we'll make it, just when we'll make it. We've been making maybe 4.2 or 3 kilometers into these headwinds, so we'll get there. But but the thing that's nice this morning is the air is really dry. It's a real fresh feeling. A lot of our damp stuff last night almost dried just sitting here in the air on the canoe or whatever. So anyhow, this is our morning at our historical campsite right here on Spawning Lake. So today presents a few challenges, and we're going to have to see how this goes. The one thing is the distance from here to the Broom Lake access is about 14 or 15 kilometers, so hopefully something in the neighborhood of 4 hours, and maybe a little less, we'll see. We've got a pretty stiff breeze blowing here, and it's going to be into our faces for at least half the trip. Shiningwood Bay has got or is it Shinglewood Bay, the northeast arm anyway, it's got a lot of fetch to it, so we have to see how rough that's going to be. And then of course, if you look over here, you can see the darkening skies. Now, this is not supposed to happen until 5 o'clock, but you know, and so those are the two things that concern us. Now, let's put this in perspective. We've been pushing against pretty significant winds on this trip and been able to manage 4K an hour into them. And if it rains, it's warm enough that we should be fine, and we're going, in theory, to our cars and from there to home. So if it was to happen, it's maybe a little more benign than happening in the mid-trip or something like that. But anyhow, so that's sort of on the plan. So we've been moving a little quickly. It's just 5 to 8 now, and I've just got to fill my pack up, and we'll slide out and be on our way. So stay tuned. So, final look at our 5th camp here at Loon Bay, our historical site that we were here about 45 years ago. Just finishing up. Okay, underway. Day 6. This is the second longest trip I've ever done in the woods. My longest is 7 days. And food lasted pretty well. Just a bit of mold on one muffin, but other than that I can't complain. It's been great. And so now I gotta figure out where Frank is, and we're on our way home. It's just been great. We've been very fortunate with the weather and everything else, and hopefully whatever rain is up there will give us 5 more hours.
Hello, thank you for watching this video. I enjoy making and sharing these videos. It would be very helpful to me if you would subscribe and like this video. It is completely free and would help me grow my channel. Thank you very much.
So we've had a rough ride up Shining Shinglewood Bay. This is half of what it had been. 25 kilometer headwinds, 2 foot or more chop. And so that's why there's been a lot of video. So that's our situation. You can see how quickly I'm being pushed back here. So anyhow, we have 700 meters to the turn, and we'll make it up there. So we just arrived in the Broom River, I guess it is, or access to Broom Lake here. And after a wild ride on the northeast arm, and we just got through it. It's probably about 9K of 20 kilometer winds right in our face, 1 to 2.5 foot swells, breakers, and we just made steady process. I was getting anywhere from usually about 3.5 to 4, maybe 3.2 when it was really bad, but just kept on going steady eddy. I find if I just paddle at the same force, I can go for quite a while. So anyhow, I'm just going to show you this access to the first quiet water we've seen in hours. And so up here is a small portage into Broom Lake, and then there's the access to the Temagami mine road, and then Frank's going to walk up to the car and I'm going to keep an eye on everything. So our big trip is almost done. Okay, let's go. Well, welcome to Broom Lake, everyone. Our last little lake. The plan with this trip, we started at Iceland Lake, but getting back to that was portage intensive and so on, and it curtailed the loops we wanted to do. So we decided to come in here at Broom Lake, and that puts us about 2.1 kilometers down the road from where we left our vehicles 5-6 days ago. So what the plan's going to be now is we'll get to the other end, we'll get set up. Frank's going to walk down and get his car, I'm going to sit and have my lunch and sit with all the stuff, and then he'll come back, and ultimately I'll get a ride to my car, come back, and then off we go. So that's kind of the math here. It's a nice little lake, and thankfully after 9 kilometers of that slog on the northeast arm, we are back in calmer waters. The trip from my standpoint has been just wonderful. I started out on Iceland Lake about 2 hours behind Frank because he slept in his car and started early. I drove up from my home, and then so I basically did the first day by myself, and I met him at the campsite, which was beautiful on Cross Lake. We decided, because the campsite was so nice, to stay an extra day and cut the southwest arm off of our trip. We spent day 2 exploring Cross Lake, which was really nice. We saw the big cliff faces and so on, which was great. At the same time, we then, and that was 27 kilometers, it was a good day. Lots of nice passages and so on. Day 3 was a transfer day where we went back through Cross and around into Portage Bay to another really nice campsite beside another even more impressive rock face, which had different lighting conditions, and we hopefully get some nice video and photographs from that. And then day 4 was the long paddle from Portage Bay all the way to the top of Coqueco Bay, and then lake actually. And it was a little trickier to find the portages and so on, although I think we lucked out on that. And the second thing, of course, was a campsite. But again, it wasn't the best one, but it was okay, and it worked out fine for us. Then yesterday we paddled out, and of course we also discovered that Loon Lodge, Temagami, has really nice French fries. So going by on the way up to Coqueco was a natural, but yesterday we decided we needed sustenance, so we did a 7-kilometer detour, so to speak, to have another feed. And then we went back into Spawning Bay and ultimately stayed on a historical campsite. And then of course today has been primarily the paddle out, which has been beautiful and interesting, and all the way up, well, halfway up the northwest arm, or northeast arm, pardon me, and then here on Broom Lake. And just a few hundred meters now, I suspect, from pulling off for this trip, and it's been just great. So thank you for coming along. My gear review will be added to this final video, and again, I just review gear on this trip that was either new gear or gear I used in a different way or something that is different than the past. So we'll get video coming and going here on this one as we finish this up. I think Frank's decided he needs to do a little bit of fishing just to finish off things. Have the GPS mounted here on the yoke to catch your mistakes and see how far you have to go or whatever, you know, might be relevant to the day, and it's kind of nice. And then I have my the camera that's currently taking my video here is normally in the holster down here, and it's there for handheld video or stills. So the shots, for example, yesterday, the eagle, we can grab that camera quickly and do imaging video directly. And I have the other one on the other side, it's my action camera, which is mounted to the canoe and does, you know, shorelines and narrow passages and things of that character. So just let you ride with me until we finish up here. It's not too much further. Rediscovering Temagami. It's been a lot of time in comparison, and now that Ontario Temagami is even closer than Algonquin, and I just love the clear water, and I like the conifers over the deciduous trees, and I'm like the canoeing without obstacles, and so we can decide where we're going, and you know, that's where we're going, kind of thing. It's pretty nice. The motorboats that are here, really, except maybe the club, you hardly even know that most of these lakes are accessible. You just don't see it. You would have 5% of the boats you might see in cottage country, let's say. It's and half of them are probably work type boats, construction related or something. I don't know, it just feels differently up here. It's truly amazing, this piece of effectively native technology that allows you to cross this country, this land, this area. You would not, there's just absolutely no way you'd be able to get around in here with all the water and, you know, dense forest and so forth without a canoe. It's truly an essential item to do this. Looks like Frank is at the end of the trip there. See the hydro lights on the road, so this is the point here. So hopefully he's going to do that and maybe a half an hour or a little longer, he'll be back with his car and we go from there. Thanks again for watching my channel and traveling with me. I hope you find these trips interesting. I certainly enjoy doing the trips and putting the videos together. Thanks again. This is my latest stove. It's still burning. A little noisy at times. But that's a brand new little guy. It's first time use. Making some soup.
So this small stove is made by Coleman, called a classic one-burner backpacking stove. It burns butane, and it was about $26 or $27 Canadian at Walmart. So I see it online around $30, something like that. It's 195 grams, and it requires an igniter. There's very little to do to set it up except screw it on the butane canister. Now, my backpacking Spiders type stove from Woods, which is bigger and maybe more stable and has an igniter built into it, is 295 grams. So I've cut 100 grams. So, you know, not a big change, but maybe still nice to have. It's more compact anyway.
So this is a view of my console, so to speak, in the canoe. That's my camera holster, GPS, and my action camera on the post. That's my three primary instruments that I've been using. Sometimes I put another post here that I can also mount the camera that's in the holster, but I didn't do it today because it was going to rain. So I was trying to keep things nice. And that's sort of what I work with.
In the past, if you've seen my videos, you'll know that I generally use a fisherman's vest to carry my equipment while I'm in a canoe, which makes it quickly accessible. However, having things in slots on the canoe proper, I honestly think is even better. And the vests, they tend to tear over time. They don't fit all that well. Then you still have to deal with the life jacket and all the rest of it. So there's a part of me that would like to move to having the things that I really care about in a canoe. So my cameras, GPS, perhaps the binocular in slots somewhere in the canoe. And then it's only a matter of what I do when I'm portaging. And I'd like to think I could figure something out with that without having to wear the vest. So that may be something coming down the road. In a previous video, I had shown how I used my tripod to support my water filter bag. While this worked very well, it was a poor use of my tripod. Now that I had added the quick disconnects to the tripod and my camera, I wanted to be able to use at the campsite for more than just supporting my water bag. I decided to try a 60 centimeter long strip of Velcro that I could then wrap around a tree of reasonable diameter. I hoped the strap would be strong enough to support the over 2 liters of water that might be in the bag. This has worked perfectly and cost practically nothing, and now my tripod is once again free to support my camera. Now that my tripod was free from supporting the water bag, I decided to set it up at an open area of the campsite. This allowed it to steady the camera when it was zoomed into a distant object, either for basic inspection by using the camera's 30 times optical zoom as a digital binocular, or in the making of a video recording. I found that major pans are smoother holding the camera by the grip without the tripod. The quick disconnect allowed the camera to be either connected or disconnected in a few seconds as events warranted. I set this up at each campsite on this trip, and I expect to continue to do this on further trips. We began day 6 at our campsite at the mouth of Spawning Bay and went around. It's actually an island, and out in calm waters south on Lake Temagami, and again pretty much in calm waters until we got to the corner leading into the northeast arm, and there we met a 25 kilometer an hour steady wind that just wouldn't quit. The distance from that corner to the turnoff into the Broom Lake access is approximately 9 kilometers, and that took almost 3 hours. The speed into it was in the neighborhood of about 3.5 to 4 kilometers an hour, down from say 5.5 with no wind. The chop and so forth was about maybe 1.5 to 2 feet, but that's not too bad. The canoes are quite buoyant. So the strategy after getting into this was to cross over, and I hoped that the wind was coming a little more east than north, and that if we hugged the southern shore, that the wind would go over our heads and we would be comparatively fine. Now, that didn't work that way, to be honest with you, but it was worth a go. And it was better to do it then than to stay on the north shore unprotected and then have to cross over when you're tired at the end. So the first part, marked by number 4, is when we stick handled around the islands, and we got a certain respite at that time. But after that, we had that stretch marked in the area of number 5, as you can see on the map, where we were unprotected for probably 5, maybe or so 6 kilometers, where we just had to paddle on the shore and just put our heads down and do it. There was no rain, thankfully, but it was a pretty heady wind. Now, Frank got a little bit ahead of me because he uses the kayak paddle, and that makes him slightly faster, but it was still no problem to manage it. And then we got to the corner, and as soon as we got into the Broom Lake access, it was calm waters again. And that paddle wasn't too bad. There was a nice little portage of 100 meters, and we got to item 6. Now we were then 1.9 kilometers down the road from where we put in. But we did that because the access point further up apparently is pretty rugged. So I watched the items, and Frank went up the road and got his car and came back, and then we were able to end the trip at that time. Thank you very much for coming along on this trip. I very much appreciated showing you this video.